Your Excellency, traditionally they say a defecting governor is usually handed over the party structure of 60 to 40% ratio. In your case, we saw the executive committee dissolved before coming in. And there is the fear amongst those who have traditionally stuck with the APC, those who stood with the party even when it had just 1% of the votes in the presidential election in Enugu in 2023. What do you say to them? Is this, would you honestly say this is a defection of merger or a complete takeover?
Well, so we've just moved into a partnership, as I've referred to it in the past, and the issue of constituting a caretaker committee is essentially to address a lingering challenge that had, bedeviled the party here in Enugu State. So there had always been an existing court order to actually dissolve the executive that was finally dissolved. So the party was already bifurcated. Here, there were quite a lot of factions, and what we are going to do is essentially to bring everybody together, because ultimately we have to work with the people. We need the people to be able, this is all about the people ultimately. So you don't want to exclude anyone. So I believe that one of the first things we're going to immediately do is to set up a committee, a reconciliation committee, to make sure we reconcile all the warring parties and bring everybody together.
So you'll be campaigning for President Bola Tinubu?
This is all about the people. Certainly, I think it would be a sin for any governor not to do. And I say that again because we haven't really, as governors, seen a president, and I'm speaking from having also been in the public sector before now. Of course, I had a stint in the public sector where I also was a commissioner for finance, so I was in the best position to know what accrued to the government from the federation account. So looking at the policy, the liberal policy of this president, who has ensured that he frees up resources for subnationals, who understands that the $1 trillion economy cannot be realized without strengthening the subnationals. And that in freeing up the resources, you're able to invest in the people, you're able to get the development to trickle down to our grassroots, to our weakest link. And that is what this president has done. He has largely, I hear, of course, arguments that, of course, with the federation account, it's not, but, he could also have decided, oh, let's create a pool, and then decide what program or what project that SS or SS fund could be used on, which had been the case in the past. But here we are having a president who feels that, no, I think the money should be let off to the subnationals, to the local governments, so that they can actually touch the people. That money can percolate program or what projects that SS or SS. I see that as the only avenue for us to be able to achieve this $1 trillion economy. And there is also you have a president in the current president who believes that he doesn't want to hold so tight to power. You can see some of his support. He's now supporting the state police, as you know. That's again saying, look, let's devolve power. Let's ensure that we strengthen our sub-nationals. We strengthen our periphery. And so I definitely...
Just a follow-up. Now you're closer to the president. There's this ongoing clamor for freedom for Nnamdi Kanu. Will you consider raising it with him? You're closer to him now.
Well, you've always known my position about Nnamdi Kanu. That hasn't changed. It took less than, I think it was barely a week after I assumed office that I had a meeting with the president and I was very specific when I came out to address the press that I also raised the issue of Nnamdi Kanu with the president. Yes, so I believe strongly that the Nnamdi Kanu's problem is going to be solved politically. And with this now, I think it is also an opportunity for us in the Southeast to consolidate our position and make a very strong case for this to be resolved politically.
What is your definition of political solution? Is it that it needs to be, there is a protest that is being, people are preparing a nationwide protest for Nnamdi Kanu's release. And there are those who said they're surprised that Nnamdi Kanu's name did not appear on the clemency list of over 100 people, almost 200 actually, 178 or so, that made the prerogative of mercy from the office of the president. Were you also surprised that Nnamdi Kanu did not make it?
So
what's the definition of political solution?
So first of all, we need to accept that concept that this is the right thing to do. And then the details of implementation would need to be worked out because there would be certainly details. And it is not things that you can possibly outline now, but it's for us to even accept the concept that this is the way to move forward.
All right, Your Excellency, let me just come in. I'm so sorry. I've been trying to ask this question. Now, there are some people who, like I asked before the break, some people have this perception about APC in the Southeast. How would you describe this perception? What is your understanding of the current view of APC in the Southeast? A region that has complained of marginalization for so many years. That on one side. And I need you to please answer me specifically. Then the second question is, what do you have to say to those people who have watched you for over 2 years and have seen the commendable strides that you've made, all of the developments, and feel that you may be making a big mistake?
So for Enugu, which would always remain my primary interest in all of this, I want to assure them that the way this decision would impact or touch their lives is not just that we are going to continue, but we're now going to accelerate the development we have, the strides we've accomplished. That stride will not be broken. So we will not, this movement will not break the stride. It is going to reinforce it. And again, I think that, you know, the issue of perception is going to be driven largely by what our people see going forward. Now, if you're able to demonstrate with this movement that you're not just only continuing with the progress you're carrying out in Enugu, but you're strengthening that, you're actually accelerating that because of this partnership, then that perception will automatically change. And you will have the people be the ones carrying the banner everywhere. And that's what I see.
All right. You know, very quickly, sir, I know you want to move on to governance issues. But, you know, I find it quite intriguing. You spoke about power devolution being, you know, some of the things that excite you about some of the policies we're seeing from the center at the moment. However, on the side of that conversation, there's also talk of Nigeria becoming a one-party state. We're already seeing almost a supermajority in the Senate. We've almost reached 2/3 majority with APC. The House of Reps is following closely. The governors are now completing the task of turning Nigeria potentially into a one-party state. How do you feel about the fact that when the history books are written, your name will be listed along those who endorsed the movement towards a one-party state in Nigeria?
Okay. First, we're not operating a one-party state as yet. And what I think...
So it's possible.
Yes. So what I think I would like, when the history is rendered, for posterity to remember me for, is that I was one of those who believed in a policy, in programs and in projects that touched lives. And I moved to support those policies and programs and projects. I believe strongly that the current president and his programs and policies, if we keep the course, that it would percolate to the micro level.
Are those more important than a multi-party democracy?
So, frankly, if, so you're not going to even talk about multi-party and single party by saying, oh, the multi-party is good and the single party is bad. It's not, it's not black and white. You have to talk about leadership and the quality of the leadership and how that leader is, people focused and all that.
So you're okay with the one-party state?
No, so the one-party state is not likely. I mean, you have people coming together to coalesce, to form coalition, to, still criticize government and try to put the government on its toe, which is a good thing. And I think you're going to see a build-up of that as we get into the elections. And that's not where we're drifting to. But I still believe that I'd like to be, counted among those governors who came together to support policies that touch the lives of our people.
Let's wrap up quickly on politics and move to governance. And the way to wrap it up would be to ask you that you're looking like one of those governors who want to hold the control of two parties in their state. And on one hand, you are PDP with your right leg. You have officially moved to the APC. And there's a feeling that you still hold the structure of the PDP and you still hold the structure of the APC. Invariably, what they say you have done is that you have secured your second term because there is no opposition like the APC to threaten your re-election. It does look like you have secured for yourself an easy comeback for a re-election. Is that what you have done? Is there a mathematical game there?
So I've always talked about the renewal of my mandate as a choice that will be made by the people. I've never taken it for granted. And I don't think it is going to happen because you have one color of flag behind you against another color. It is going to happen if the people believe that you have performed on your social contract with them. So part of what we did when we got into office was to execute Citizens' Charter, where we outlined clearly what our obligations to the people, the promises we made to the people. I'm sure by the time we go back to them to ask for the renewal of their mandate, they're going to have to look at that contract and tick the boxes and, find out whether we've kept to our own part of that bargain. So for me, what secures your mandate is, keeping to your own part of the bargain, keeping to your own part of that contract.
So why are you not letting go the PDP structure?
I am not...
so they see you as PD-APC or APC-PDP?
So if I turn back, yeah, I don't see any other
they say there is
flag.
Another flag in your bedroom. Which is that of...
Interesting.
No, why is that? There are some states where we have seen this happen. The states where there have been defections. There, in some states in the southern part of the country, there's this huge allegation. I wouldn't raise the name because of it's still an allegation, but we see, and we see the truth, that they still keep it as part of the grand strategy to whittle PDP down. Now, it's an opportunity for you to state clearly, categorically, are you going to do it or not?
So for me, I won't generalize, and it would be unfair to do so. I understand if that's a fair concern by some people. What my focus is, and I keep saying this because that is a mission I believe I am on, that whatever you do must be focused on the people, right? I'm not going to, again, you know my background. You know, I have one of the things you can take for granted when it comes to me is that I cut straight. You've observed that during this period of interview. We are of a party, and we're going to do everything to promote that party in the state.
Can you tell the people today that you don't have anything to do with the PDP? It's bygone and bye-bye forever.
And I'm even surprised that, including Sheung, you're also still, you know, entertaining yourselves with these thoughts and stretching your imaginations, you know.
We've seen it happen.
Your Excellency.
I thought that to put it in a better perspective, the PDP is no longer the major challenge for Governor Mbah.
Yes.
Because in the last election, it was the Labour Party. And the difference between both
in the
parties,
presidential election.
I am referring to the governorship election.
Okay.
You know,
Yes.
Mr. Governor won barely with 4,000 votes over the Labour Party. So if you have left the PDP, the big question will be, are you going to be able to get a lot of support to battle the presence of the Labour Party in Enugu come 2027?
Well, I think it may interest you to know that we now work as one family, even with the
obedient movement?
The candidate that I contested against at the Labour Party, we now work together as
so you've
one.
Captured the state politically.
No, but rather than say capture, you would say, look, once you believe that I can see some shared purpose here, I can see some shared, if you're driven by something and you're able to identify the same thing being carried out by someone else, I think the natural thing is to say, look, let's work together. If this lot had fallen on me, I would have done exactly what you're doing, and I think we should.
Your Excellency,
let's not entertain the temptation of not going to God. Please.
No, we're going right from here. Okay.
Maybe the last of politics.
Okay. How do you?
Quickly, please.
I will be very. How do you intend to cope with the current stakeholders in the All Progressives Congress? Those who consider themselves the most powerful. You're coming in, and you're coming in as the newbie, the new person, joining them. All the attention is on Enugu State and on you. How would you cope with those people who consider themselves stakeholders? Do you anticipate politics?
No, so frankly, the party has a policy where, you don't consider anybody who has identified with the party as alien or as new or as coming in now. There's a standard policy of the party to treat everyone as equal.
So who would lead the APC from the southeast?
That will be the decision that will be made by the party at the congresses, right? There is going to be the congresses which should happen sometime either in November or December. And it is at the congresses that the leadership at the world level, the state level, the zonal level would emerge. And it will be decided by the members of the party.
Do you hope to lead?
So when you talk about leadership, I thought you were talking about the various arms of the party. Who leads, for example, the ward executive, who becomes the chairman, the state executive.
He's asking who is now the face of APC.
No, the leader.
Is it Governor Chairmen? Senator?
No,
are you the leader
I
of
think
APC?
the natural thing is the governor is the leader of the party in the state.
So Governor Mbah is the APC leader in Enugu?
Certainly, yes.
All right, let's quickly move to governance. I was curious to ask, is Governor Ifeanyi Ungwai in on this? Did you consult him?
I thought you were here when the announcement was made.
No, but the people are listening now. If you can reiterate.
Oh, no, you were all here. You saw him right here.
So he's an APC man too. Okay, let's go to governance. Quickly, let me take the first shot. Yeah. And I'll start with what a lot of people now see as what carries the emblem, the name, and the flag of Enugu beyond the shores of Enugu, and that's Enugu Air. You're a businessman. How would you explain the calculation of how you are using the money of Enugu State? What is the business defense for your decision? Is it because of a popularity contest that other states are doing and you're following suit? But business-wise, what are the numbers? How much have you spent? What are your projections the first, third, fifth year of what it will return for the people of Enugu State? Economically, is it viable?
Thank you very much. I'm glad you alluded to the fact that I'm a businessman, and you're very correct. So you would imagine that I would have crunched the numbers. I wouldn't just delve into it if it didn't make sense. So yes, we looked at the numbers, and we also looked at the benefits for the state, so the bigger picture. But I'm actually very pleased to, and this announcement we had actually made during our town hall, where we said to our people, look, the projections we had, we were quite pessimistic, because truly when you run your numbers, you have three scenarios. You have your pessimistic position, you have your base position, and you have your optimistic position. So going by our base financial model, it would seem like it would take us like 6 months before we begin to remove our subvention and allow the airline to operate on its own. But I've announced to the people of Enugu that we actually beat that threshold, that benchmark, because we didn't have to access funds from anywhere else. It seems like, you know, we had made a projection that our load factor would be about 40% within the first 3 to 6 months. But when we did our numbers in our first month, the report was over 75% load factor. So we didn't have to come back to the states to support anything. So the airline, as it operates today, is self-sustaining, and in fact, rendering returns to the government. So we're not, you know, it's a fantastic business, which is why we're increasing our fleet. We're going to add additional 6 aircrafts by the end of the year.
Are you going regional? Okay.
Yeah, we've received approval to do regional flights.
Okay, sorry, let me just come with the issue of governance. I looked at the last figures, internally generated revenue for states. Enugu made a quantum leap, 180 billion for the last year under review. That's a huge leap. You also alluded to the money coming from the center. Everybody knows, my colleagues have also made allusions to it, the beautiful work you're doing. But out there on the streets, I get the cry, oh, the taxes are becoming heavy. The burden is becoming overbearing. So how will you balance this drive for IGR, development projects, and welfare and well-being of the ordinary folks on the streets?
Well, I've had to address this question on a number of fora where I engaged the people on the town hall meetings. So what we've done to increase our internally generated revenue is not to increase the tax rate. What we've essentially done is to expand the tax nets. So we've brought in people who before now didn't have to pay tax, or perhaps it wasn't enforced. We've now brought them into the tax nets. And because it was something they never did, it's beginning now to sound like, you know, you're overtaxing people. No, we again, I try to explain that the tax matters, they are actually on the exclusive legislative list. The state cannot legislate on PIT. We cannot legislate on CIT. That's the personal income tax, the company income tax, VAT. These are all matters that are within the exclusive legislation. And recently you followed the Tax Reform Bill, which was signed into law, so it's now the Tax Reform Act coming into effect by January 1st. Again, that's within the preserve of the National Assembly. They legislate on those tax matters. Now, if you come to things like rates and maybe even taxes on small businesses and fees and all those market rates and what have you. The interesting thing, which is part of what we're going to do, we're going to set up a committee that, because I've heard this severally, I've been able to interrogate my IRS chairman to find out what is going on. He's told me, look, what we have actually done is go below what used to be collected, because before we came in, those taxes were collected by non-state actors. You have people walking to the market. We came in, we automated all that process, so no payment is made in cash. You must pay only to government account through e-payment. Even the transport sector, we also ensured even those driving keke and motorbike, nobody pays cash, nobody accepts government payments by cash. You have to pay straight through an e-payment. And so he is saying one thing, and I'm hearing some like what you've said. And so I've decided I'm going to constitute a committee, have the market women in that committee, have the NGO, the civil society organization. Let them come up with a report, do a review, and then come back to me with a report and say, look, this is our finding, and then we can address it. There are also some of the things we won't even be able to do from January, because if you're an SME and you're earning less than 1.5 million, we cannot tax you. You can't tax you can't get, and that tax is not even done by the state. It's done by, it's a law that is made by the federal government.
All right, sorry, let's reorder it.
Okay,
so go ahead.
All right, shall we come back around? Yeah. Let's talk smart schools, which again, I mean, fantastic initiative. If you look at it just off the surface, and the fact that a number of them were completed successfully, I believe as well, the majority of them, I think, is something that we need to celebrate and acknowledge. However, having said that, I read a comment made by a Chief Ray Naji, who was saying that in some of your dealings in executing these projects and overseeing this development, that you've sidelined some Enugu who would have been fully capable to deliver these projects in a professional and transparent way, that you brought some contractors from outside. Of course, we know how that case ended. So I'd love for you to address what you're being accused of some type of cronyism with regards to specifically the Smart School project, and then what's the status of that contract with Sijubomi Ogundele? Have we been able to clean that up? Is that school being built? Have the funds been returned? Give us an update on what's going on with the Smart Schools, and also respond to this comment from Chief Ray Naji, who is saying that you've sidelined the people who stood with you in 2023, and you're awarding contracts to, you brought Suji Moto, who's now come and caused this mess, when Enugu could have done the project and completed it successfully.
So that won't be, I understand the concern of Ray Naji, and perhaps you may also have maybe few people who feel that way. But I don't think it's an accurate characterization of what we do here. In fact, if anything, if you look at the stats, if you look at the number of contractors we have executing the Smart School projects, there are over 80% Enugu's citizens, people from the states or people who live here. Okay, so we're quite objective in terms of our selection process. We knew we had a very tight deadline in terms of project execution, and we were thinking about those contractors that would be able to deliver on fast track, because you have to have the skills, you have to have the resources in order for you to deliver on fast-track projects. It's unlike your conventional delivery. And so we identified maybe 1, 2, 3 contractors that we felt would be able, and through a very competitive bidding process, emerged. And then we engaged them. But again, if you look at the large percent, and I'm talking about over 80%, and I challenge anyone who is interested to probe further and get facts, and we can also make that fact, public. We can publish the list of contractors we have for the smart schools. You'll find out that over 80% of them are people from the states, people who are here. And so in terms of the process, we are also very diligent, but a project of this scale, there's no doubt that sometimes, no matter how diligent you are, no matter the level of due diligence you may have carried out, something may still go wrong. But what is important is that we've also the institutions and that is able to help us ensure that none of the state funds is gone without being recovered. So that process is ongoing, and I think that the issue of recovery is what we're dealing with now.
Have you recovered anything yet?
I know some funds have started coming in. Have started coming in, and I have no doubt the way the case is being managed by the EFCC, that the state will fully recover all the funds that is due to the state.
I would like to follow up on the issues in the education sector. Your smart schools are widely, talked about, and the tech-driven curriculum happening within the walls. But there's the issue with the private sector. There's a viral video of a 3-year-old girl, I don't know if you've seen it, was allegedly flogged by her teacher. And, analysts, that video has sparked a lot of outrage nationally. And stakeholders are saying that it's a disturbing reflection of weak oversight happening in the private school sector, across the country. How do you specifically respond to that incident? And what are you doing to ensure that there are measures to strengthen regulation and also standardize practice and operations in the private sector?
Very good. I'm glad you brought that up. So we have, and I think what you now hear these days is that we're over-regulating. And you would also notice that quite a lot of the private schools are now using the public school that we are building as an index, as an indicator. So we've raised that bar, we've raised the standard. What happened with the 3-year-old is unfortunate, but of course you can be sure that we have also taken the right steps to ensure that the proprietor and the teacher, the particular teacher in question, is brought to justice. And so we have zero tolerance for such things. Education is by far one sector that is the be-all and end-all for us. It takes 33.3% of our total state budget. So you can imagine that, for every 1 naira we spend, 33 naira goes to education. So it's one sector we don't joke with. There are quite a lot of reforms we've carried out with respect to the regulatory activities of the state, regulating the private schools.
For that particular incident, I'm not sure, seen any government reaction officially on what transpired.
Oh no, we've actually taken actions. It's not even just reacting on the pages of newspapers, but we've taken, both the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Children have been involved in that matter.
And we're sure it won't happen again.
Oh, well, of course, if you understand the consequences, and some of it, because again, it's a process, at the end of the day, there would be consequences. And when it becomes known, people will know that it is not something you can do and get away with.
All right, let's talk funding. Now, during a recent interview on the morning show at Apia TV, I was a bit taken aback, pretty much surprised, when one of our guests said that a lot of the funding for the developments in the state have come from Abuja, from the national. And it made me to start thinking about the internal revenue drive of the state. And I wondered, is it that the state's revenue is not enough to fund these projects? Are a lot of these projects funded by the national?
So I don't understand. We have several receipts. We have several revenue sources. And of course, one of the major revenue sources is the receipt from Abuja, the Federal Account Allocation Committee, which Enugu is part of, and we should get that receipt. Of course, what we have seen in recent time is that that receipt has increased, and we get it. We're entitled to it. But that does not derogate from the fact that we also mobilize domestic revenue. We've increased our IGR. They all applied. But we will not say, look, because we have domestic revenue, we shouldn't get funds from Abuja. It's just, okay, it's what we're entitled to. And when you look at our budget, we captured all these revenue sources accurately. The receipts from Abuja, what we project to get from our internal source, and all that.
I don't know the sort of cooperation we are seeing within the governors of the 5 states in the Southeast. I'm raising this question because of your plans, I read of, to build an internal rail system within Enugu. Ordinarily, would have been so a form of cooperation among the Southeast states. Speak to this cooperation as against your plan for that rail project. Where are we now with that plan?
As you know, I've always advocated that we should build a common market in the Southeast because of our homogeneity, because of the fact that we have a very small area with densely populated people. We have 27,000, maybe 28,000 square kilometers of land mass, and we have up to 27 million people residing within the same, and we're talking about a land mass the size of Benue or Oyo, and yet you have these densely populated people. And so I've always believed that we have to have a plan that enables our people to commute from one city to the other, and that way you can attract huge investment. People will not be looking at Enugu as a market or Anambra as a market, but they look at the Southeast as a market. And so they can, when they make their investment decision in terms of their market analysis, the market size will not just be restricted to a state. And what enables a common market to take place is the ease of movement. If you're able to build multimodal transportation system and people are able to commute from one city to the other with ease, that obviously, and I'm glad that this move is being made and we're consolidating, at least from the party point of view. The fragmentation I mentioned before, we're at least addressing that. It is my hope that to bring us back to the table where we can go back and start thinking about this common market.
Are they showing interest, the other states?
Oh, certainly, certainly.
All right, we get into the home stretch now. So I have a feeling that I don't know how much of the governors, how much they feel about what the policies of government and what they do in office will impact on the poorest of the poor. You take the average and you look at the number of those who are in that cadre of the society, you perhaps will imagine, I don't have the figures, but we imagine that there are much more in the population. Now, you talked about taxation and how you're trying to digitize it to ensure that you're plugging the leakage. But the word on the street is that the poorest of the poor are heavily taxed. They feel that the little they have they're taking a lot from that. You say you're doing a lot of projects. The question they will be asking is Peter Mbah really a poor man's governor or the rich man's governor? What are the people-oriented projects? And what confidence will the poor people who are watching right now, who are probably getting a translation into Igbo language, the fact that they are not going to be taken out of existence because of your taxation policy?
So when we campaigned for office, we outlined a blueprint for Enugu State. And that blueprint was based on 3 critical factors. The first one was to build the economy exponentially, grow the economy from $4.4 billion to $30 billion in 8 years. The second is to eradicate poverty, to reduce our poverty headcount rates to 0. And then the third is to ensure or to make Enugu State the #1 destination for living, for tourism, for business and investment. So if you look at these 3 factors, none is mutually, they're not mutually exclusive. They are mutually reinforcing. They reinforce. So we could have stopped at saying we want to grow the economy and focus on that. But we didn't want to grow the economy at the expense of our common humanity, which was why we went a step further to say, look, we would eradicate poverty in 8 years. We'll achieve 0 headcount rates. That also now leads us to developing people-oriented projects. So if you look at the projects we do in the state, none is elitist. They are all designed to touch the grassroots. So we could have addressed the issue of education marginally, could have identified 3 zones where we site the smart school, and it will become an exclusive preserve of the the wealthy ones. But we didn't do that. We decided that every child in this state must have access to quality learning. And the same thing with the healthcare. Every child must have access to quality healthcare. And we went about that. And we're doing the same thing in other areas. Portable, we have over 127 communities we're currently intervening, building potable waters, boreholes, having different water schemes, also building toilets because we want to achieve ODF by the end of the year. And we're aggressive on those elements. What are those programs and projects speaking to? Our weakest link, making sure we lift them out of poverty. We're also empowering our SMEs. So the idea of overtaxation is alien. And I have said, in order to assuage that concern, we're going to constitute a committee so that it is not just, let me say this, sometimes people take politics to a different level. When we took the decision to digitalize and plug some of these leakages, don't forget that some people, there were some entrenched interests that we displaced. And make no mistake, they're not going to go down without fighting, okay? So we believe that there is this narrative that is being framed that is not quite correct, but rather than just take my word for it, let's even have our market people, our civil society, come and do a full review of this taxation issue and give us a report. Point out to us where we have gone wrong. And I'm more than happy to address that. And that's what my citizen charter speaks to.
All right. A final question, because we're right at the end of it.
Very short. Firstly, it sounds like you're going to be very busy. You're creating a lot of committees for different issues. But electricity, of course, we know that that's pivotal to everything we're talking about, whether it's lifting people out of poverty, productivity, generating IGR, and so forth. It was formidable to see the state take the initiative to test the new Electricity Act and slash electricity prices, take the regulatory stance into their own hands. And it's unfortunate to see the deadlock that then followed with the distributor following that. And I understand it continues. This issue hasn't been ironed out. How do you foresee this very critical issue, the deadlock between pricing, between the regulator and the distributor for electricity? How do you foresee it being resolved? What is your plan?
Firstly, we find it highly commendable that the electricity market has somewhat been liberalized, that the states are now able to play in all the value chain of electricity, and that the State Electricity Regulatory Commission now has the power to regulate electricity in the states. But I think because this is something new, and so there has already been a mindset with the electricity distribution companies. All the regulator they respected and honor before now was NEC, you know. So suddenly those powers from NEC have been devolved to the states. So you now have the Enugu Electricity Regulatory Commission, and we make a pronouncement on what we believe to be in the best interest of the consumers after having done a very exhaustive analysis, even with engaging them and all that. So it's taken a while, but we believe that we will all get used to the fact that there's a new sheriff in town. You know, it is the Enugu State Electricity Regulatory Commission that has the power under our law to regulate your activities and to ensure that the consumers are not exploited.
I guess we could take one or two more. I have an understanding that we have some breather of some few minutes, and I see that.
Yes.
Oh, no. Yeah. Let's go the route where we're going.
Sure. Beautiful. So I was hoping we could touch on the issue of inflation, because the recent NBS figure did mention that Enugu has the lowest inflation rates in the country at 14.2%. That was in August, and that the rare month-to-month drop was over 5%. It looks really remarkable on paper. In fact, I've asked some of the commissioners, how did you pull it through? But beyond the numbers, what's the kind of feedback you're getting honestly from the people? Is the cost reducing really? Are small businesses also feeling the impact of reduced cost in the market? So
we dealt with the issue of poverty eradication in Enugu, you know, frontally. So we knew, of course, the root causes of the fragilities we observe in our communities, or insecurity, come from poverty and maybe unemployment. So with respect to employment, we have about, from the government side of things, we have over 2,000 projects currently going on. So the feedback you get is that Enugu perhaps is in terms of artisans, they charge the highest. They even charge more than Lagos, because everybody is constructively engaged doing one project. We're doing 260 smart schools in every ward. What that means is everybody in the community must be busy, except you are lazy. We're doing 260 primary health care centers in the same ward, so you must find jobs somehow. And then, of course, we're not talking about 260 smart farm estates, taking care, increasing the production level of our farmers. We even want to see that figure drop further, because we're quite aggressive with agriculture. We're providing inputs. We're mechanizing. By next year, we're going to be thinking about processing our surplus, because we're not just going to be looking at agriculture as food security. We're going to be thinking about exports. So how do we, because think about it, 200 hectares where you had manual farming taking place before, you now have 200 hectares of land ring-fenced, because you don't want the clashes between farmers and herders. You know, so the place is ring-fenced, is access controlled. You have tractors. You already know we brought in over 100 tractors. Currently, there is a production of about 900 going on in the state, because we brought the same company that we took delivery of 100. We insisted for us to do the balance 900, because our total order is 1,000. You will have to produce from the state. So they built their plant and they're producing from the state. And by the way, that's the same way we have quite an influx of businesses coming into Enugu. Again, because we've created that ease of doing business. So that number, we're going to see drop even further by the time we begin to harvest in the next season.
All right, Your Excellency, 2 questions, final questions. The first one is, how expensive is this transition going to be? I understand that you're going to have banners changed, the PDP logos would be changed to APC. We're seeing the flag behind you, that's probably new, right? So a lot of things are going to be spent. Could you specifically tell us, from a business perspective, how expensive this has been so far and what's still to be expected? Then secondly, based on your current realignment with the APC, how would you use that to address some of the critical issues, specifically as regards security? You talked about power-headed crisis. How would this alignment address specific issues still facing the state? And the expert's question.
So for the first question, I think you already know that when you're talking about a government or a state that is, nimble and lean, you have to make reference to Enugu. We squeeze every penny from each naira that we spend to make sure that it gets to the people. So it's not going to cost anything, maybe the cost of the flag, but I don't even think that government will pay for that, because you have the party structure. The party has its own budget, has funds, has ways of attracting funds. So that has nothing to do with government expenditure. And with respect to security, you already know that we've been receiving a lot of support from the federal government. You remember that when we came in, we had to stop the long-held, the so-called sit-at-home, Monday's sit-at-home thing. We stopped it immediately we came, and that was thanks to the federal government, because we had to mobilize federal security agencies to ensure that we end that. So what you're going to see is that stronger partnership, which was why I refer to it as alignment at scale, which is what it is. So.
Allow me to quickly follow up on security, because last year you inaugurated the Enugu State Security Trust Fund.
Yes.
The idea is to pool resources from everywhere for the safety of the average citizen. How much have you gotten thus far? Because at some point you're reporting 3 billion out of 20 billion.
Yeah. We're still we're getting a lot of money. Just recently, we've just not had, because there are some drones that they ordered for which had not, some of the parts had not arrived. So we're receiving vehicles, we're receiving drones, quite a lot of equipment from them. So they're doing well. We still expect to strengthen that. And there is, of course, an app that they have, which also makes the receipt of funds sustainable, because every citizen can donate, whether it's 100 naira, 1,000 naira.
How do you track transparency, though?
So we have a board of trustees. That we have the chairman of the board of trustees who heads, so it operates outside government, so it's quite transparent. I think the whole system is very transparent.
On the 141 routes you flagged off.
Sorry,
90-day
apologies. So that we don't hold on 1 minute, because
yes.
I just wanted to land on the issue of security, then we'll come to that. You set a trap right here in the government house.
Yeah.
The trap is a digital trap. You put in place a command and control center. I know you have AI-powered vehicles, rapid response squad.
Yeah.
You also, the command and control center, you're setting up the 3 billion optimized to 20 billion in trust fund. What are the figures in terms of the crime rate statistics? How much of the thieves, the criminals, have you been able to catch with that drag net? And as Simon Ekpa's prosecution in Finland helped the cause of security in Enugu State. And the good news is that there is an organization that gave out a report to say that Enugu State is the safest in the southeast. How much of the trap has been able to catch the criminals?
I dare say in Nigeria, it's not just in the southeast. I don't think you have any state as safe as this state, because we have reduced crime by over 80%, but beyond that reduction, we have also built the capacity to track criminals, to be able to capture them, to be able to, know where they are once they commit any crime. And so we have a line of sight of what is going on in the entire state, not just the city. So if you walk just across this building to the command and control center, you would be able to have a view of what is going on, not just in the city, but across our state. So we have cameras in our rural areas that help us track people. Even so, some of these cameras, all of the cameras have thermal and AI capability. So what it means, even at night, we're able to identify these guys in the bush. We'll see them, we'll be able to track them and capture them. So whereas we cannot claim that we do not have breaches every now and again, but what we claim is that we have the capacity to be able to track these criminals and bring them to justice.
So this Simon Ekpa, how has it...
So again, it's almost like taking out the oxygen from these guys, right? Because he was largely linked to funding of a lot of these criminals. And I'm sure that if you followed the case, that was very well established, and that's why he's somewhere in jail now. And so that obviously cut down on these tensions, this siege thing, that, because he was basically the oxygen.
Amici, your question sent us out.
Yes. Now, 141 roads you inaugurated.
Yes.
The start of commencement. 90-day time frame you gave. Many are wondering, 90 days has come and gone, and what's the progress?
So the thing with the road thing is, once there is a struggle, so when I think we flagged up those roads in March or so, right? And we had wanted to achieve that before the rain sets in, which is why we gave that timeline. But the minute we got caught in the rain, we had to stop, because anything you do during the rainy season will be suboptimal. You're going to have to repeat it over again if you continue. So we slowed down because we didn't want the contractors to continue because of the rains. So now that the rains are, drying up, we're going to go back and have that done before Christmas.
All right. I think we've done quite a good job in, but we're totally out of time.
Cost per kilometer.
You're not an engineer, and you're not a professor of practice, are you?
No,
but you're a professor of business.
One thing you can take for granted is our prudence.
Okay.
That's something we're known for. And the fact that we were proud to say, look, you have a businessman as governor, what do you expect?
Yeah.
We have to get the best value from every deal we make.
All right. We're totally out of time, but the cameras are here. The people of Enugu State are just behind. And I'd like you to give us a sign-off in this tone. Would there be any regret if the decision of today cost you your re-election?
Again, for me, what would constitute a regret would be if we seize the pace, or if we slow the pace of development that is going on in Enugu State. As you already know, the profile of Enugu is rising. We're bringing Enugu back to her preeminent position. As you know, this was where it all started. This was the hub of economic development in this country, even before amalgamation, right? And we, so we're not just another state, we're Enugu State. So we're going to continue on that trajectory, and as long as we continue without slow, we accelerate the pace, the people at the end of the day would have to make their choice in terms of whether they renew my mandate or not, but it will be without regrets.
Governor.